This is Larry Culpepper, inventor of the college football playoff. Goes without saying that I know about a good idea or two when it comes to college football. And the best idea out there is to subscribe to the Championship Drive podcast in the Listen tab of your ESPN app.
I can't control myself right now. I'm trying my best.
It's understandably so, buddy.
I'm emotional.
I hear you.
I'm an emotional wreck.
It's only going to get worse. Just continue to breathe. That's all you can do, buddy. That's all you can do. It's only going to get worse.
I'm in a glass case of emotions right now.
Yeah. Wait till the ninth with this 3-run lead.
We were all there with you.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Either the Cubs won or we caught in the Matrix. Like, we're in a different world. We don't know a world in which the Chicago Cubs are World Series champions.
What a time.
What a time to be alive. Jamel, think about this. The closest the Cubs came to being champions was when Robert Zemeckis made a movie in which a teenager got into a time machine and went into the future. That's the closest they ever came. This is to process this is just, I'm still struggling with it. Like, did we actually watch that last night? You had a collapse and a comeback within a comeback to end a 108-year drought. And a commercial saved in drafts. Nice job, ESPN Sports Center, Jay Harris.
Good looking out, Jay Harris. I think that's what makes this even that much more surreal. How many times have we seen, maybe not quite in this dramatic fashion, and obviously not with these stakes on the line, have we seen the Cubs be on the wrong side of history? And it's not only unbelievable that they are the World Series champions, but this is the kind of game that has been a part of their negative legacy on, again, the wrong side of things. And I'm just flabbergasted. I don't think when the Red Sox won, when they finally broke their curse, there wasn't, at least I didn't have this sense of, this is unbelievable. I was like, this is a great moment. This is, you're breaking something that is, long been talked about in sports in terms of a drought. But this was completely different for me anyway, in terms of processing this as both a fan. And I don't care if you were not from Chicago or Cleveland or had no rooting interest, last night turned you into a fan.
No question.
You were just there as a fan to absorb all of this.
Even them winning 114 games now, 103 in the regular season, it still feels like a dream. Like, wait a minute, they actually did it. They were the favorites, but they actually did it. The Cubs did it.
And it's hard to do in the wild card era because, I pointed this out consistently as they had their bumps and bruises along the way to win this. It's not easy to do. It's not easy for the best team in baseball to complete the deal. And the fact that they did it after being down 3-1, that just makes it.
And that's the best way. It had to happen. Like, so yesterday we talked about, unfortunately, somebody had to lose this. And it really stinks that it's coming at the expense of Cleveland. And now they're on the clock, or continue to be on the clock. They have the longest drought in baseball at 68 years and counting. But for this to happen this way, I'm going to go back to the Matrix. What happened and couldn't have happened any other way. It was like, it was so perfect for them to have come back from a 3-1 deficit, have a 5-1 lead, almost choke it away. Like, I don't believe in curses, but there was some divine intervention when it comes to the rain delay. Even Joe Madden could not manage his way out of this. Nothing was going to stop him from winning.
He was about to overmanage himself into being the new Steve Bartman or the new Billy.
They blow a 5-1 lead, come back to tie it, almost lose it. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I was with Rizzo.
It's all a blur at this point. I don't even remember what happened.
I was with Rizzo in terms of a glass case of emotions. I was trying to feel like, why am I stressed out? I'm not rooting for either of these teams. Like, I'm not from Cleveland. I'm not from Chicago. Yes, I'm from the Midwest, and to some degree, on some level, we're all kind of, siblings in the struggle. But I had so much anxiety. I was like, I don't understand why I'm feeling all of this. This is not. I'm not losing anything here, but every inning, I don't know if you did this, I found myself rooting for both teams.
I told you I was conflicted the whole series.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what was going on when the Cubs.
Because you didn't want one of them to have to lose this.
No, I didn't. When the Cubs made a great play, I had to say, oh, man, that was great. And when the Indians did something, it was like, oh, okay, that was something too. So I was just as captivated and compelled as everyone else.
That's why, look, I'm not, Abner Doubleday. I'm in no position to sit up here and say what's the greatest Game 7 or greatest World Series game we've ever seen. But I have a hard time believing that there was one better. There certainly has not been one with the stakes higher or more drama or more tension because of all obvious reasons.
Or the history that's there. I mean, you're talking about the Cubs and this.
Just the stakes.
Yeah, the stakes and this long-standing baseball storyline of how they can't get right. and for them to be the ones to finally do it, it's just really surreal.
Jamel, I haven't enjoyed. If somebody was asking me the other day, they came to my house and they were like, do you have fun watching sports? Because it's like our brains are constantly working. We're constantly consuming and processing and producing information in order to do this quote unquote job. It's a fun job, but there's a lot more work involved than just a pastime or a hobby, the way it may be for fans. The last time I was as much of a fan watching a sporting event was Kobe's last game. That's the last time I watched a game and just enjoyed it and just got wrapped up in rooting for, like, give me more, give me more. So last night I'm watching this, and I think the reason you were on edge and emotionally invested, not just because of the stakes or because somebody unfortunately had to lose this and their drought was going to continue. The other thing I would compare it to, slightly different, because I'm from New Orleans and grew up a Saints fan. Remember I told you I cried in 2009, even though I wasn't a Saints fan, through and through. I cried in 2009 because I thought about my childhood. I thought about my grandfather. I thought about coming home from church, watching the Saints games or going to the Saints games, getting Popeye's chicken, that sort of thing. I knew what it meant for the city. In this case, we didn't have a baseball team in New Orleans growing up. See, you talked about you fell in love with baseball listening to Ernie Harwell with the Tigers in Detroit. We didn't have that. So you had the Braves on TBS and you had the Cubs on WGN in syndication with Harry Carey. So my grandfather would watch the Cubs games in his living room. My dad would watch the Cubs games. My dad's favorite player was the Hawk, was Andre Dawson. Ryan Sandberg, Mark Grace, all those that was my squad growing up. They allowed me to fall in love with baseball. I loved collecting baseball cards growing up because of the Chicago Cubs. So there's a part of us that even if you're not a Cubs fan, even if you're not from Chicago, they were the lovable losers, America's tease as opposed to America's team, as I put it. And it's like, you did get invested in them because even throughout pop culture, I mentioned Back to the Future, Brewster's Millions. What was the shirt on Montgomery Brewster's back?
That's true.
A Cubs jersey.
A Cubs jersey.
Okay, I mean, like Ferris Bueller.
They came to represent futility.
Yes, Ferris Bueller. They ditched class to go to the Cubs game. Hey, bada, swing, bada.
Right.
That's what this. So everybody had a connection to the Chicago Cubs in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and I guess I know a lot of folks from Chicago. I mean, not that I don't know folks from Cleveland either, but to see how
you checked on Rick.
I did check on Rick, and he's doing all right. He's handling this well.
Ricky Smith is okay?
Ricky Smith is okay. As he pointed out, for Indians fans, for him in particular, because they just saw the Cavaliers win one. So they feel like, even though it's different sports, obviously, they feel like they have one. And it was such a great game. As he texted me, he said that's the greatest sporting event I've ever been to. And
even in defeat, huh?
Yeah, even in defeat, it was such a great game. It's hard I know that there's a lot of disappointment, I'm sure, in Cleveland, but it's hard to walk away from that and your takeaway be, oh, the Indians choked this away. And I know we'll get to how some of the jokes about the 3-1 thing, how that might have impacted things. But you mentioned your sort of childhood love affair with him and seeing your family do it. I guess knowing a lot of people who are Cubs fans, to see the joy that they have today. Yeah. It's really, really, it's kind of heartwarming.
Come here, Shree.
In fact, one of our very own.
Come here, Shree. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Shree Raman, like the noodles.
Yes.
Shree Raman, he's a content associate here, one of our many productive staff members who helped make this show what it is. Obviously a Cubs fan. What was it like waking up this morning, bro?
I'll use the same terminology you did at the outset, Mike. I'm still having trouble processing this, and part of the reason I think was that ninth inning last night.
Probably took years off your life, right?
The only word I can keep coming up with is I was inconsolable. I thought, here we go again. This is going to be the worst chapter out of all of them. The Bartman play, the Garvey home run. At least with those, you had that semblance of hope there was a next day. The Rajai Davis home run, I'm like, this is the bottom of the ninth. They're going to do this to me again. And again, I'll use the word inconsolable. But
see, I told you, Jamel kept saying. You saw the last couple of days. Jamel kept saying, "Oh, at least they got there. At least they got there. This would have been the worst." And I couldn't even imagine trying to come here consoling you.
Right,
today.
The way this game went down, I certainly understand that feeling today. So now that does it feel weird though to be the team that is at the top now?
Just hearing the SOT calls coming into work this morning. The Cubs win the World Series. The Cubs win the World Series. These are dreams you have. This is not reality to me right now. But again,
isn't it better to come back from 3-1 like that too? Like I think about the Red Sox, like they did it against the Yankees, down 3-0.
Yes.
That made it sweeter. So now it's like not only do you break the drought, I ain't gonna say curse, you break the drought,
yes.
but you break it in this fashion, makes it even better, as opposed to just steamrolling through the entire playoffs.
Absolutely. And then, again, back to trying to process this all. These are the things that I'm now slowly realizing, after getting through that ninth inning and after them winning it last night, like, hey, there was like that historical footnote too, coming back from 3-1. I believe the first
on the road
since first team since the '79 We Are Family Pirates. So again, now that it's going to start setting in a little more and more, I fancy myself strutting around a little more like a peacock.
Oh, we saw you.
Oh, yeah.
Shree came in this morning and be like, I ain't doing nothing. Like, y'all, I'm going to tell y'all what to talk about. Y'all talking about the Cubs, and y'all can go to break when I tell you to go to break.
That's right. Well, congratulations,
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
this, all right?
Thank you very much.
And then there's the flip side.
Yeah,
of
there
this.
is.
Cleveland, sorry, it had to be you.
Yeah.
Draymond Green, obviously a lot of people got a kick out of this tweet. You see the
3-1
numbers.
is not safe anymore, boys.
Well, if we didn't learn anything this year, it's that 3-1 leads are overrated between the Warriors, the Indians, and even the Thunder before that.
And then SB Nation, I thought this was hilarious.
Oh,
Got
man.
Steph handing it off. Because everybody had 3-1 jokes. But, a lot of people, getting back to Draymond's tweet, some people took that as him trolling. I thought granted, it's hard to tell.
There were no emojis.
It's hard to tell, context and get a tone for something when it's written as a tweet. But I thought he was sort of sympathizing. That's what I thought. I mean, am I being naive?
And I don't think this is your Michigan State bias either. I think if you're cynical, I think most people on Twitter would troll. I think in 2016, most people's reflex is to point and laugh, is not to express sympathy or empathy, either one you want to pick. I tend to side with you on this, that's what Draymond was really doing, saying, I've been there.
Right.
And at 3-1 leads, people, because nobody has ever, we talk about this all the time, when LeBron has cookies baked for Halloween, or he has a drum, decorated 3-1 lead, or when the ring has the 3-1 reference on it, the Cavs championship ring, people instinctively say, oh, the Cavs are trolling the Warriors. Whereas I say, no, I think a byproduct of it is trolling the Warriors, but I think it's more pride on the part of the Cavs and Cleveland for what they accomplished overcoming the odds. So I say that to say, people want to point and laugh at the Warriors as opposed to give a thumbs up to the Cavs when it comes to this 3-1. The story is Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. That's like the running joke. Not Cavs came back from 3-1 deficit. I think people don't give enough credit for them coming back, and therefore don't understand that a 3-1 lead, ask the Yankees up 3-0, ask the Thunder up 3-1, ask the Warriors up 3-1. A 3-1 lead doesn't mean the series is over. It can turn like that, because if it gets to 3-2, this is why I picked the Red Sox to come back from 3-0. Because if it gets to 3-2 and that last game if you don't close it out in 6, anything happens in 7. So I think Draymond is expressing that, man, I've been there. It really does stink, because the entire world expects you to close it out like it's simple to get that 4th win, whereas obviously it's not that easy.
Well,
that's how I took what Draymond was saying.
Especially if you're at home, too. And I don't
How many times did I snap my fingers just now? I was Lil Jon or something.
I don't remember which one of our baseball analysts said this, but I agreed with it, is that one of the things that I think was a huge factor for the Cubs in pulling off this epic comeback was the fact they did it on the road. So they didn't have the pressure of, we're at home, we're at Wrigley, we're supposed to close it out. And you, as soon as you get to three games, if you're obviously on the winning side of that, as soon as you get to 3, everybody starts this countdown to when you're closing it out, right? And while I don't know if that mentally impacted Cleveland at all. I think this was much more about what the Cubs did and scrapping their way back into this series.
Well, Roger Davis didn't care.
Correct. I mean, he came through.
Cleveland has no reason to hang its head this morning. But it hurts. But they fought. But
that's part of, I think, the different nature of both sports. I think in basketball, there's a much bigger expectation that you should close it out at home because it's basketball, right? As opposed to...
Or if you get up 3-1, that you are the better team.
That you are the better team,
yes,
correct? Because we hear, you just look at the statistics. I mean, it's a reason why teams rarely, if ever, have come back from 3-1 and definitely not from 3-0 in basketball. So the expectation is different. I think with baseball, I found it interesting that today, and part of this has to do with the ebb and flow of the game. Anybody who watched the game last night, you can't sit here and call Cleveland some choke artist like they might do if in another situation. But there's a reason why they're not doing that. It's because I think a lot of people felt like the Cubs were the best team all season, that this was just sort of them, this was just how it was supposed to play out.
This was just one game, and I don't think anybody wants to point the finger and laugh at Cleveland, because thank you, Cleveland, for giving us another, as bad as 2016 has been from a tragedy, a loss of life, just a tension standpoint. This has been an amazing year for sports events, or championship games in particular. So nobody would look at Cleveland and say, "Oh, you didn't show up or you choked." It was like, the Cubs just found a way to get more runs across the plate. One more run across the plate.
That being said, between the Indians and the Warriors, in terms of blown 3-1 leads, and what is more devastating?
Oh, it's the Indians.
It's the Warriors.
It's the Indians.
It's the Warriors. And I know, look, the Warriors already had one, so. Yes, I get that.
Well, that's one.
That's one reason. I understand that, and that's fair. However,
not 68 years.
But when you win 73 games, and you have a potential to maybe be the greatest team in history, at least thought of in that regard, or at least strongly in the conversation, all right, and you're up 3-1 in the finals, that is, I think, a lot more devastating than what
because
the
Kevin Durant will have you believe that he doesn't go to Golden State without them blowing that 3-1 lead. So they might have gone back to back, but they got an opportunity, if they get their act together, to win a couple more championships with this big four that they have. So even though they lost, as we've talked about all offseason, now into the season, they kind of sort of won. They lost that 3-1 lead and gained Kevin Durant. That's not that bad of a trade-off, all things considered, in the grand scheme of things. Whereas with Cleveland, tell that to, even though they got the Cavs and their professional sports drought was erased by LeBron and the Cavaliers over a generation, how many times have the Indians been close and broken their hearts? So if you're an Indians fan, you don't want to hear, "Oh, it was a great run, it was a fun ride, we gave it our best, we fought.
Or it was an epic game."
Yeah, tell that to 97, 95, 54. I mean, how many times do they have to look back and say coulda, woulda, shoulda? Now they're the new Cubs in terms of the longest drought in professional sports.
Well, in terms of drought, I guess.
In terms of the drought, yeah. Well, they're the people. They're on the clock.
They're on the clock. But nobody's looking at them like.
And most of all,
losers necessarily.
LeBron, I said this the other day. LeBron could still do it because the Yankees are his team, or were his childhood team, and he was really pushing for Cleveland, and he orchestrated his own 3-1 comeback. But the rest of Cleveland can no longer make 3-1 jokes. So this loss...
Wait, so they have to retire?
Pretty much. I mean, except for LeBron can still do his thing with the Warriors. But the rest of Cleveland can no longer say 3-1.
So you think this was karma?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying I'm going back to Draymond, and what I think Draymond was saying, was implicit in that tweet, was that 3-1s don't mean what we think they mean, or certainly don't mean what they used to mean necessarily. I don't think karma had anything to do with it. I think the Cubs and them being good, and the way the game played out toward the end. I mean, look, the fact they were able to get to Miller, they were able, to get to Kluber.
They got to Kluber, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they're a good team. They won 114 games. They weren't lucky. They didn't just get hot in the wild card and beat the better team. I mean, going in, the Cubs were the favorite and perceived to be the better team for a reason. So I don't think it's karma, just like I don't believe in curses. Because the funny thing about curses is they end randomly, which doesn't make sense. Like, who came down and said the curse is over now? No, they were just good enough to do it, and they finally did it. I don't think it was karma, but you can't now make a joke at somebody like, "Yeah, y'all blew a 3-1 lead."
So did you.
Precisely.
Right.
That goes out the window, which is why the Indians' 3-1 loss was more devastating.
No, I don't believe in
my humble opinion.
I don't believe in karma either, because
in life you believe in karma, but not in this.
Well, no, I believe that everything happens when it's supposed to happen. That everything happens for a reason. And maybe the times where the Cubs got close, it just wasn't their time.
Precisely. Maybe they weren't good enough.
That also is a factor.
And more often
as
than
well.
not, they weren't good enough to be in the playoffs in the first place. Now, people talking about dynasty.
Right.
What world is this?
I know.
This is Larry Culpepper, and if you love college football as much as I do, enough to invent the playoff, you're welcome. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to the Championship Drive podcast in the Listen tab of your ESPN app. App is short for app.
Let's go back to last night when points guard James Harden, 30 and 15, and the sickest Euro step you'll ever see. Look at the bench. You see the bench? So he's had 3 games this year of 30 and 15 assists, at least 30 and 15 assists. There were 3 such games in the entire league last year, averaging 32 and 12 assists.
Well, you knew offensively him and Mike D'Antoni would be a very nice combination, but I think James Harden is showing some more versatility now that
He out here doing stuff nobody's done since Magic, and you got Kyrie winning the MVP.
I did not say that. Don't tell people that.
Seems to be a man on a mission after not taking kindly to Sports Illustrated, ranking him as the 46th best player in the NBA. He's like,
shade.
40, you say? 46? Had his 4th straight 30-point game last night against the Wizards. Entering this season, he had 2 40-point games in 521 career games. Now I've got 2 40-point games in 4 games this season.
Yeah, he's out there putting in work. Toronto, understandably, chip on their shoulder, given how the playoffs ended for them against the Cavs. So I'm loving this sort of early rush that they're putting on right now. All right, we got to go hard in the paint right now after calling the recently retired Ray Allen the greatest shooter ever.
It's being nice.
Steph Curry says he has his sights set on Ray's record for most threes made, 2,973, saying it's something to shoot for.
So you're not going to go back and say you were right all along, because you eventually
I came around.
Right.
But this is why it was so hard, though. Do you understand why this is a hard category?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Ray never did it like that. Ray made more threes. Ray has a beautiful stroke. Steph said because of the longevity. It was always off the dribble. It was always a degree of difficulty. That was always the reason why it's a skill that Ray just didn't have. Ray coming off screens.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, he made a lot of big time shots in his career.
Steph's the best.
Speaking of Steph and the Warriors, Russell Westbrook and the Thunder, they improved to 4-0 last night with a win over the Clippers.
That's my guy.
That's your guy. But Russ had the most Russ-like game of all time.
Look at Ballmer. Even Ballmer had to give love. Damn recognized game.
35 points, 10 turnovers.
Oh, there you go.
I just point this out.
There you go. So you want to talk about the dagger with 18 seconds
left? No, he hit a dagger.
You want to talk about the 10 turnovers?
I don't think anybody
else. You never talk about the games where he has 10 assists and no turnovers. You don't point those out. Man, you are so anti-Russ.
Did we forget who picked Russ as MVP this season?
Took you long enough to come around.
Hello.
I made room for you on the bandwagon.
That was so Russ-like.
Been hating on Russ since before.
I was amused by it, though. And I don't know if anybody else in Oklahoma City had double figures. Because he had all the shots.
So obviously there's a lot of hype surrounding tonight's game between the Thunder and the Warriors. Not only is it the first time that KD and Russ will be face-to-face since Durant's departure, but it's also a rematch of last year's conference finals. Here's Russ on the 4-0 start, and people like Jamel that doubted him.
All the speculation about how your club was going to be this year, and you're up to a 4-0 start. What are your thoughts on it?
What speculation?
How the team was going to perform.
Who said that?
I did.
That's where you went wrong.
Well, in other words, you lose one of the best players in the NBA. Reload with some other guys, but the sense was you'd fall off a little bit.
And who said that?
A lot of folks, I would say.
That's where they went wrong.
What's your excitement level going into tomorrow? Not just the Kevin factor, but the fact that it's Golden State. Y'all went 7 games with them last season.
No, I play every game like it's my last. I play every game the same, always, like I've been saying for years. Regardless of who we play, I'm going to play the same way.
Typically, but see, you're laughing. You're laughing. Typically, though, Jamel, that is an empty cliche. It's a throwaway line when guys say it's just another game. The reason why Russell Westbrook, I think anybody that watches the show that listens to me, the reason why Russell Westbrook is my favorite active player is because it's true. Because he played, whether it's the Sixers or the Warriors, whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, whether it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter, same aggressive approach. He had it when Durant was on the court as his teammate. He'll have the same mentality with Durant as the enemy tonight. When he says it's just another game, he's telling the truth because that's how he plays all the time. Everybody can't say that they play the other team like they hate them all the time, no matter who the team is. Russell Westbrook plays that way. That's why he's as great as he is.
Maybe it's just the phrasing of it, because when you ask a player in this type of game where there's some personal history there, will you have some extra edge? The implication I think they automatically, think is, so you're saying that I don't play hard every night, right? So both can exist, not playing hard every night, but it does stand within just human logic and reason and just being a human being, which deep down somewhere in there, Russell Westbrook is.
I was about to say he's not. He's a Terminator. He's flesh on the outside, but on the inside he's a Terminator.
Deep down there is a part of him. This is not just another game. Okay, that does not imply that the previous 4 games they played that he was slacking off, that he wasn't taking each possession as seriously. But this is not. You can't say this is just another game.
When you on 100 every game, when you on 1,000 all the time, what more do you have to give?
I don't think he feels like he has anything to prove. That's not what I'm saying.
Prove. I'm just saying it's like he's always this way. I told you. See, the reason why we disagree on this, Jamel, is because you, for the longest time, have felt like Russ is somewhere in the fetal position, watching television till television went off, playing records till he don't want to hear him anymore because
he's not sitting there like Alex Forrest under the lampshade. I wasn't putting it that way.
You act like he's actually emotionally hurt. I don't think he cares.
Think he's emotionally hurt. See, hurt. I think you misunderstand what I meant when I said I think he cares. By caring, I wasn't implying that he is hurt. But I think there's a part of him that is ticked off at the very notion on a competitive level that Kevin Durant left them to go to the team that beat him.
I told you before, he didn't care when Durant was on the court. I always looked at him as equal to Durant because that's how Westbrook approached the game. He never saw himself as second fiddle.
I don't blame him for that.
So my point is, he doesn't care if Durant is on the team or goes somewhere else or not. It doesn't matter to him. He's going to keep it moving.
Well, if he didn't care, why did he want him to stay? Clearly he cared.
Because he wants to win. Why wouldn't you want Kevin Durant on the team?
Okay.
But to be like, oh, I'm ticked off as a competitor because you left me? No. Russ is out there like, fine, I'll get 50-point triple-doubles. Fine, I'll do what I got to do like I did all the time when you were hurt. When you were on the court, I always did what I had to do to win. So he doesn't care whether Durant's with the Warriors or not. He hates the person across from him for having the audacity to think you can guard me. That's his approach all the time.
I understand that. I don't think he cares where he is, but I think he cares that he left. He cares that he left.
So when he put 50 on a triple-double, first person since Kareem to do that, what was the motivation for that the other night? When he just went smooth off on the side?
That's what I'm saying.
What was that?
See, that's what I mean, is that you are taking this to me by saying somebody cares that they didn't care in the other times.
No,
I'm not saying that.
I don't think that I truly believe that the one person who can say that there's no added motivation in a reunion game like this is him.
I don't think added motivation is the right way to put it. Like I said, if you want to call it poor phrasing, then call it poor phrasing. It's not added motivation because Russ is always motivated, but there's a part of him that's a little bit ticked off about the fact that he left.
I think there's a part of you that just wants to believe everybody shares your pettiness.
You petty too!
Me? No, not at all.
College football lives here. After a 1-3 start, USC has won 4 straight and have their sights set on defending their Pac-12 South title.
Slash back at the 5, touchdown, Trojans.
Up next, Oregon comes to the Coliseum, averaging over 40 points per game.
Sudden change, big play for the Ducks, they take over.
Coverage begins Saturday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, presented by Dr. Pepper.
It could not have been a more entertaining, difficult series to win. And I think beyond all that, I want to believe, and I do believe this is good for our game moving forward, that if we're attempting to seize young fans and not just to play the game but to be fans of the game, you cannot be more entertained than you were over these last 7 games. It's incredible. Of course, I would say that because we won, or I'm not saying that just because we won, because it's just true.
All right. Now, see, Mike, you and I, we play in baseball, but Howard Bryant, he breathes baseball. You know what I mean? Wow. Howard Bryant, senior columnist for ESPN the magazine. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, you heard him talk about heaping a lot of superlatives, Joe Madden, that is. A lot of people
like superlatives.
We do. And a lot of people have a lot to say about this game and this series, for that matter. Greatest World Series game ever. Greatest World Series of our lifetimes. Are you ready to go that far with this?
No, not ready to go that far in either way. But I agree with Michael. I love what you said earlier about this, about the stakes being as high. I don't think you've had a World Series where the stakes have been as high as this one because of the droughts on both sides. However, it was not the greatest game ever. And the reason why it wasn't the greatest game ever was because there were no lead changes. The Cleveland Indians had a 3-1 lead and were up 1-0 in the 4th game of Game 5 and had not had a lead since. So you essentially had 2 series. And so to me, there was the tension. There was the tension of whether or not the Cubs were going to get there. There was the tension of Joe Madden doing everything he could to not win the World Series.
We're going to talk about him for sure.
There was Rajai Davis on Chapman. There were all these different storylines. But at the end of the day, the Indians never had the lead at home in the final 2 games of the series.
So not enough back and forth.
Not enough. To me, the greatest games of all time are the ones where you have a chance to lose.
Okay.
And at no point last night were the Cubs losing.
So of your lifetime, what would you say was the greatest World Series game or series.
The greatest World Series game that I witnessed, that I was at, was 2001 Yankees in Arizona.
That was the first one that came to mind when we started having this conversation.
And the reason for that was you had so many things on the table there. You had the huge personalities, but you also had, it was post 9/11, so there was all that sort of tension from that entire series. There was the series itself where the Yankees had no business being in that series and still were an inning away, they were an out away from winning it. And then, of course, they were going for their 4th straight World Series. There was tremendous action there. You've got 1975, phenomenal World Series, Game 7 there. I mean, there's a lot. The 2011, Rangers and Cardinals. The Rangers were a strike away from winning the World Series twice and didn't get there. So I'm not willing to go there just yet.
It has a lot of things working for it. Like
Absolutely.
The Game 7, I think it was the 5th extra inning, winner-take-all World Series game. So it's like, if you want to confine it.
And the apocalyptic element of you've got these two teams going at it, and then it starts raining.
Right.
How long is this going to happen? There was all kinds of great stuff in it.
I was trying to catalog it all. I just sat down today at our pod thinking of all the memorable moments from this game, and I got up to 20 different moments. Like, I literally, because I had to write them down, from Dexter Fowler kicking it off, with a leadoff home run on Kluber, who had been pretty much unhittable throughout this series. Even the way that Albert Amore, that heads-up base running play,
exactly, to come take second base.
Yeah, it was just a lot of different moments in this particular game. So maybe can we go with most compelling, most dramatic?
Sure.
I'm not sure where.
Why don't we just say it was one of the greatest games we've ever seen, because it was,
and that's good enough, right?
It's got a seat at the table, and it brought a lot with it.
Absolutely, and it brought a lot too. Because as I was watching this, I was thinking something else. I'm like, hey, baseball, stop marketing yourself as a regional game. You're not a regional game. You're a national game. Well, you're the national game.
I'll just interject quickly to say this was the highest rated Game 7 since 2001. So obviously everybody was watching this.
Higher rated than NBA Finals Game 7.
And not only that, but you went toe-to-toe with the vaunted, unbeatable, unbreakable NFL, and you beat them as well on Monday Night Football, on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, but look what had to happen. I mean, like, look, baseball is very healthy despite certain narratives about it not being fun. I mean, obviously revenue says otherwise, attendance says otherwise, ratings say otherwise, but it took the Cubs and the Indians. I mean, even if you want to factor in with the Indians, not just their drought, but also the Cleveland factor that LeBron
I was going to say LeBron brought a lot of this.
Yeah, so it's like all of this had to come together for us to have this once-in-a-lifetime, or 2 lifetimes the case may be, once-in-a-lifetime event of a Cubs-Indians World Series going down to a Game 7. It's great for baseball, but my issue, Howard, whenever it comes to, well, is this good for the game, or does this help the game, that implies that the game needs help or is in a bad place to begin with.
Well, the game does need help. The game
this is not going to fix it. This is not going to speed up the game, or fewer relief pitching decisions, or unwritten rules. That's not going to change.
But I don't think that's the reason why the game needs help. Those are issues. The game has all kinds of problems.
Correct.
Like most sports have, everything has its issues. The baseball problems, when you're talking about playing under 2 separate rules every single day, now that you've got every day interleague, you're playing your most important games in the worst weather. One of the greatest things that happened last night, in the last 2 nights, was that you had fall. It wasn't 35 degrees. It was 72 degrees in Game 6 and 69 degrees in Game 7. So the ball was flying, the baseball was good, and the tension was great.
Right.
The reason why you have an issue, the reason why this is really important for baseball is, one, you can market your franchises better. You can sell these teams. People cared about these teams. The other reason is because I think that we're now starting to finally get a little further away from the steroid era, where these games felt a little less tainted. You weren't looking at every player the way people had over the last several years and going, no, I don't know about this guy or that guy or this guy. So I think that the game took over. If you look at what's happened with baseball over the last 10 years, the biggest headline in baseball every year for the last 15 years has been drugs.
Sure.
Last night it was baseball.
No, this is extremely positive. But again, the casual fan was brought in with the Cubs.
And that's the other
reason.
Last
year's World Series was great. The year before that was great. Bumgarner's. We've had great postseason drama. You just mentioned Rangers Cardinals, so it's not the first time we've had great drama, but Cubs Indians.
But the difference too, I think too, is where the NFL is right now as well, because they, like the NBA, are in an unusual position to attract some different eyeballs, in the sense that obviously based off ratings, and it has nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick, maybe quality of play, whatever reasons you want to list, the NFL has had declining ratings.
No doubt.
And I don't think it's just because of the election. So now you have a sort of fan base that's out there willing to be led elsewhere.
That's right.
That is something that
and
I think
you take advantage of that opportunity. And one of the ways that you take advantage of that opportunity is you look at the sport. And one of the big issues that I've always had with the sport, and I think one of the big issues that football is having is that football has gone so hard to try to have parity. I think the return of the Dallas Cowboys is huge for them in terms of finally having teams that you can identify with and that you can grow with during the course of the postseason. The reason why the Cubs were so compelling wasn't just the 108 years, but during the entire postseason, you were getting to know this team, which is what postseasons are supposed to do.
I was about to say, I believe they have the youngest average age of position player since the '66 Orioles.
Yep, that is correct.
That's a pretty good team, too.
Yeah, we kept going back to the World Series.
Real quick, though, I want to ask you, Howard, Joe Madden, man, I'm telling you.
He'd have been Grady Little this morning.
Really? He better thank Ben Zobrist because
Thank God
for him, because he would have been
Jason Hayward.
And Jason Hayward. He'd have been the new Steve Bartman, the new Billy the Goat, or whatever.
And I love Joe Madden. He had a little bit of smarts disease last night. He was too close to it. And I think, once again, you bring in Chapman in the sixth inning. These guys were all gassed. Everybody was shot. Kluber was tired. Miller was tired. Chapman was tired. And to bring him in, I understood it for one inning in a 7-2 game because Miller looked like he was out of sorts because he hadn't pitched in 2 days. But to have him pitch 2 in Game 6 and then come in here as well with a championship on the line, he very nearly cost them the World Series.
Neverton took out Hendricks.
That's pulling Hendricks what he did because he looked like he was finally settling in. And
Lester hadn't pitched out of bullpen in 9 years.
Yeah, I mean, he should have had that third out anyway.
You throwing heat. You're not tired, are you? You got more?
Me? Well, always more.
You can't be around this long and not realize that the world will keep spinning and the sun will come up tomorrow without you. That's just the way it goes. And I think you enjoy just the experiences that you have, and then also understand like it just keeps going on. So it could happen to anybody. You just have to just show up to work, do the best you can do every day, and let your performance try to just speak for itself.
That was Tom Brady asked if he thought Bill Belichick would ever trade him. Look, I know you chuckled at this.
Okay.
I know how Mike feels about this. I, for one, understand why Tom Brady is staying woke. All right? And not because I think that he is not above the level of Jamie Collins, who's recently shipped out of there to the Browns. But, yes, I do think that in his mind he believes not that it's not an imminent worry. He's not thinking he's going to be traded tomorrow, but he knows a time will come where he is no longer useful to the Patriots.
As long as he believes it is all that matters. See, first of all, he's always picked number 199.
Yeah, I know. He's always got the chip on his shoulder.
This is why he is the Patriot way. He's the personification of the Patriot way. He is the source of the Patriot way. All the moves that Belichick has made over the years have been because he got number 12. Because he covers up for everything. He covers up for everything. Offensive linemen, receivers, even defense. Whatever it is, he can make it because of 12. There will not come a day when Tom Brady's level of play, Howard, drops off so much until Belichick looks at him, commiserate with his value in terms of the salary cap, will look at him and say, somebody else gives us a better chance of winning. He ain't Bernie Kosar. He ain't Drew Bledsoe. He's not none of the players that we've ever talked about. He's different when it comes to his standing with that organization. But the fact that he believes it means Belichick has done his job of brainwashing Tom Brady into thinking, you better stay on your game too. And what does he do? Disseminate the message for everybody else to consume. I'm just another guy. I'm an employee. So are the rest of you.
Exactly. You know what it comes down to? It comes down to my spear of lightning theory. The spear of lightning theory is every great coach has to have a player who personifies the player. I mean, who personifies the coach. Mm-hmm. In other words, to keep everybody else in line.
Tim Duncan.
If you're Tim Duncan with Pop, Joe Torre had Jeter. Phil had Michael and Kobe. And so if you don't have that guy, chances are your message is always going to be weaker with the players. And because you've got Tom Brady essentially telling everybody else, I'm not even the coach, and I'm putting all of you on notice because I'm putting myself on notice, it strengthens Bill Belichick's hand. He couldn't do the things that he did if he had a rebel as a quarterback, even with the same talent level.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't foresee it, but at the same time, given how the NFL is, just the nature of the game.
No, and he's right, Joel.
Yeah, it's going to come a time where he's not useful. Even Tom Brady, that's that time.
1992, Joe Montana hurts his elbow.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Totally different.
Right? No, I mean, not totally different. I mean, different from the standpoint that at some point you start looking, right? There are 3 ways that you're out as an athlete. One, when the game knocks you out. Two, when the organization decides it doesn't need you anymore. And three is when you go out on top. So I agree with you with what you're saying is that more than likely Brady is going out on top, or he's
gracefully retiring.
Exactly. Yeah. But when his performance drops, he is just another guy, just not today.
People used to say that about Brett Favre. Never didn't imagine him not being a Green Bay Packer. At some point it happens.
Yeah, well, he could have stayed a Packer if he didn't keep holding them hostage. Like, if you go back to that summer, they were ready to welcome him back. They had to move on. They had gone too far down the road with Aaron Rodgers, but he kept Aaron Rodgers on the bench for a while. All I'm saying is for Tom Brady, when his level of play drops, will it drop so precipitously that they say, this guy over here is better? And to your point about the message, that's why they can hold everybody over their feet to the fire when it comes to contracts, because he took less. He is an extension of not just the coach, but the owner. He's the owner's adopted son. I'm not saying he will always be able to play forever, but it will be a long time before they find somebody like a Steve Young that's a future Hall of Famer waiting in the wings for Tom Brady. It's not going to happen.
Tony Romo thought that too.
I agree with both of you, actually.
Romo was dropping off and got hurt.
Okay, we only got 3 for you right here, but they're 3 really good ones. Let's start with our man Sam Decker. He appears to have a breakaway dunk, but not. He later tweeted, "The floor monster caught me tonight. That's what happens when white guys get excited to try and dunk on somebody. Hashtag just shoot threes."
Don't they make you feel better about yourself? Because that's the type of thing I would do. If I got a breakaway in a pickup game, I would fall over myself. Yes, I would. I'm not got 2 left feet. Handles.
I'm just glad he had a good sense of humor about it. I'm sure it was a little bit embarrassing. The internet, come on, man. All right, did y'all really believe that Tristan Thompson got Chloe tattooed on his back? I don't even know if this is just a made-up photo, but it's circulating, and everybody thought that was indeed Tristan Thompson.
And his back looks a lot different than that. There were pictures of his real tattoos. I never judged him because I was Team Chloe from Jump Street, way before it was popular.
I would be judging.
It was always Chloe, Kim, and what's the other one?
Courtney?
Yeah, it was always Chloe, Kim, Courtney. Always. And y'all, the rest of y'all just caught
That's
up.
your power ranking?
The rest of y'all just caught up eventually.
You knew the Cubs fans were going to make it, right? But before
the Cubs winning the World Series is doing too much in and of itself.
It is, but somebody tweeted this. I guess that was a tweet from a year ago, right?
2014. About it being like going extra innings in the world ending. Everybody was nervous. It was like Y2K last night.
Yes, it was. And as you remember from Back in the Future too,
a lot of people's predictions came
true.
Somebody had a 2016 champion tattoo, right? I mean, that was out there.
Yep, you got Michael Lee there. And
this is too much right here. That was almost Bills fans.
That was a trust fan.
People dropping in their crowd.
Real quick, so they had champagne for Cubs. We have some because we are celebrating. Today is our 2-year anniversary.
Do you know what today is?
Oops, I just spilled some all over your.
I remember the
second time this week I've drank alcohol on camera.
I remember the first time.
No.
2 years. Like 2 weeks left.
I know. Kind of bittersweet, isn't it?
Oregon brings an offense averaging over 40 points per game into the Coliseum to face the red-hot USC Trojans. Coverage begins Saturday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, presented by Dr. Pepper.